Of the planning, or the Property and Planning Subcommittee of the Utilities Services Board meeting for March 25th to order. We have one presentation on our agenda this evening from Champlin Architecture to discuss the Service Center design proposal.
Correct. Yeah.
And you're Kevin White, okay.
I'm Kevin White, Capital Projects Coordinator. I was just going to do a brief introduction. Yes, Champlin's been here. They were here today. We went through what's been a reoccurring bi-weekly meeting. We worked through a lot of iterations to both the Service Center and the Maintenance Center. And Sean Bright and Brandy Haney will kind of dive off into different aspects of both of them, and I'll just turn it over to them to start their presentation.
Thank you so much. Last time we were with you, we were talking about what could be, and now we are talking about what is becoming, so to speak. So, first name,
record
perfect.
here.
Sean Bright with Champlin Architecture. I am
Hey,
a
Sean.
principal architect and I lead our Indianapolis office. So with us today, I do have Brandy Haney, who is interior designer and assistant PM on the project with me. We want to make sure we take about 10, 15 minutes or so. Does that sound fair? Leave some time for questions. But as Kevin mentioned, we've been through a series of bi-weekly meetings over the past several months, really focusing on land use, programming, planning, adjacencies, circulation, workflow, efficiencies as well. And with that, I think we'll start from, I think I may end up starting from an overall. I'm going to go backwards on this. Yeah. Oh, okay. So keep it around 15 and 20 or so? Okay. However we want to break it up. Let me just start off with the overall of the facility. I'm going to kind of work backwards from where we were originally. Is when we first started design on this project, we were tasked and challenged with designing a site that would accommodate your new maintenance facility of about 42,000 square feet, incorporating an environmental lab of about 3,000 square feet, as well as doing an office building around 28,000 square feet, in addition to a yard for all of your trucks, all of your pipe storage, gravel storage, trailers, et cetera, and then of course parking for upwards of 150, 160 folks. And the concept that we've shared with you at the interview it's not drastically different from that. It has changed, it has evolved as we've gotten deeper into the design of the project. And so the image that we're looking at, of course, is the entire 12-acre site. And we have situated there to plan left, the smaller building is the service center. And then the larger building to the right is, of course, your maintenance facility. And then that, of course, opens up onto approximately just shy of a 3-acre yard, as opposed to just right around 2 acres that you have right now for your yard. Really, from an overall design strategy, we wanted to take advantage of several things. First and foremost, recognizing that you are the water services utility for the city, really looked at an opportunity to have this development be a true model of what can and should be within the city of Bloomington in terms of the treatment and collection of storm water through the site. And that really drove some of the features through here. So we've got there to the lower portion of the plan, we've got all of the parking. But as you're well aware, this site is very steep in certain areas. It flows. There's a 20-foot grade differential from east to west. East is on the lower portion of the screen. West, of course, is towards the creek on top. And the idea is that we're providing all of that parking up front in a way that starts to be cut into the earth, and then we end up doing a little bit of fill where the buildings are, and we transition down and start to really feature and collect all of that water into this intermediate basin that can then be released in a series of cells further to the west, and really celebrating what can and should be done with stormwater in terms of storage and also treatment. But the main entrance, of course, we are looking at shifting the main entrance. The current location coming off of Gordon Pike is just a little bit too far west in the property to really work with good circulation and flow. So we're proposing to push that a little bit to the east so that your large trucks are not forced to go through your main parking lot that would serve the service building and even folks in T&D in the maintenance facility. So we have indeed set up that primary drive running from south to north along the east side of the property, and it kind of cuts off there at the edge of the property line there, but it is in our agreement with you to continue to extend that back towards the fire training facility. But this is the property that we're looking at. So then off of that, of course, with the service building, as visitors come in and even staff come in, they can take an immediate left and get out of the flow of all of the truck traffic. Visitors can be welcomed into parking spaces that are immediately right up front, recognizing that currently the facility is not entirely open to the public, but you still have scheduled meetings with your various departments, contractors, design teams coming in, reviewing things of that nature. So we still have a feature of an entrance at this point as well. The balance of the parking would be divided and used between the various departments, and really good good access from the parking lot into the buildings. As we move further to the plan right, which would be to the north, we do have, you see that little drop-off area, we do have that integrating with basically the dock area. So all of the services and deliveries come into the building at that location. And so we do have this outside, at least right now, what's considered the secure perimeter. So FedEx and UPS and little smaller deliveries like that don't have to, they're not forced to go into the secure perimeter of the yard and keep segregated in that sense. Larger deliveries from semis and stuff would go in and then back into the loading dock. And you'll see here in the plan how all of that works. The yard is really, was probably, it was the thing that we focused on most because at the very, very, very beginning. We had to make sure that we had sufficient space for all of your vehicles, current and also planned. We had to make sure that we had safe circulation and flow, and really with the size of the vehicles, making sure that there was proper turning radiuses for all of those was also very important. So working from the top down, we have dedicated covered, proposed covered parking. We do see those being covered in time with solar. We also have developed a way that those are capturing rainwater and storing them in above ground containers that can ultimately be used for a proposed truck wash, which is that smaller facility just to the left there. Let's see if I can point to it. This area right there. So the idea that we are capturing water and reusing it for something very purposeful for your facilities, to wash your trucks and even potentially fill some of your street sweepers or have folks come over, fill their street sweepers, things of that nature if we have a surplus. The eastern portion of the yard is also covered. We do have dedicated personal vehicle parking. We also have pipe. One of the things that we've discussed as we go through the planning process is that your pipe sitting out in the sunlight, the UV doesn't agree with it, so we are proposing to get storage underneath the covered storage area. As well as in here, there is there's a significant amount of racking storage, additional pipe storage, so we do have covered storage in that location as well. This area is considered the supply area of the yard, so it has a secondary secure perimeter because it is inventory controlled, and so the idea that there is a secondary secure perimeter is very important. So overall, that is pretty much the layout of the site. We are looking at from another key feature is again embracing. Try to zoom in here just a little bit. Embracing the stormwater quality control components is to create this central core between the two buildings. Number one, it enhances and provides views out to the creek area, but it also, and you'll see here in plan, provide some outdoor space. Right now you have a neat little patio out here that is, that the times that we've been here has been used. But here this is, we're proposing to have a terrace area with a connector between the two that can be used by both T&D, who's in the maintenance building, and also the balance of staff there to the left. Overall, again, we're trying to keep this simple, clean, and really celebrating the movement of water through the site. Are there any questions on the overall orientation of the site before I move into the buildings? Yes.
I'm sorry, can you point out on there, you said are there stormwater retention basins?
Yes.
Is that, where are those on the drawing?
So it's more along the lines of cells. They're the detention cells. And what we've done is we've created them in here.
I just wanted to make sure I was thinking
Yes.
it was in the same, okay.
Yep.
And is there one also to the west, I guess that would be?
That is correct.
There's
that is
one
to the
there
west.
too, okay.
So the way that those are working is we're seeing these, and Cecil and Andy can certainly speak to this better than I can, but these are a series of cells, so these are independent, and it really goes to the intent of how we're treating water coming off the roofs and also off of the site. Part of our design does indeed force water uphill in a sense that we are taking water from the roof, moving it to the east so we can put it on the site where it can be captured and flow, and then ultimately flow through these cells. So there's a series of basically 3 cells or so along here. You can see the one that's just to the right and down below the maintenance building. That is one that's capturing a little bit of the paving and certainly some of the roof flow, and then it starts to flow a little bit to the south into that larger basin. And likewise, the basin there, that larger basin there, the left-hand side of it, it's capturing water from the parking lot, collecting it there, and then ultimately through a culvert, moving it under the road and releasing it into that lower series. And I think there are 2 or 3 basins that are even further to the west there. So we're slowly moving this downhill before ultimately releasing to the creek. And we do have two bridges proposed here, and they're just pedestrian bridges, but there are a couple of inspirational images that we can share here. But these are just seen as simple, delicate, very pedestrian-friendly bridges that connect east to west and north to south in this scenario, and allow folks to move through this element, again, kind of really putting it on display.
Can I just
Yes.
ask? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so just to make sure I understand this right, so when you're talking about these cells, we're talking about here, and here, and here.
Correct.
And here, and here. And these are the pedestrian bridges. And so if I was parked down here, which there's another row of parking,
Yeah.
then I'd either go this way or on the pedestrian bridge to get over here.
That's correct.
This is the main entrance.
That is the main public entrance.
Main public entrance,
Main
okay.
public. We have actually set this up to encourage staff to come in what would be the north entrance of the service center. So they're coming in.
Here?
Yes, so
Okay.
coming in,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
That's it exactly. You'll see that in the plan. But it does come into this central, this central spine that ends up connecting the various departments along the way.
Okay.
But back there, you'll see the cafe, the administrative offices, so really putting the administration front and center and not tucked in a corner. So really up and friendly at that point. So celebrating the entry, and also not completely segregating T&D from the balance of staff, because T&D can go that way as well, but their offices are immediately just to the right of this feature, and there you go. That's it exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
2 additional questions.
Yes.
Number 1, I know just because of the drawing, but is anything covered, like a covered walkway? If I'm working here and I've got to go through all of this to get into the building?
We currently don't have anything covered, but doesn't say that we can't.
No, it'll
Absolutely.
just cost more money?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you. My other question would be, you talked about the loading docks.
Uh-huh.
So for deliveries and things, I think this was one of them?
Major deliveries.
Okay. And then is there any loading dock for this building?
Wouldn't be a loading dock. But there could certainly be an area where you could drive up with smaller deliveries to get, to stock the building.
Okay, so like UPS van comes, would they pull up right here?
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know that we've necessarily talked about product flow coming through there as to whether or not it has to go through supply and then over to there from an
Okay.
inventory standpoint. That's a great question.
I don't know how that
we need to
works
follow
here,
up
but
on
to
that.
me, that seems like, if I'm waiting on a package, this is a long way if
Yeah.
I've gotta go get that thing that
Yeah.
I'm waiting on to be delivered at 2:00.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if that would be differentiated with a different address to know that UPS goes here or here.
building
So
may be-
that's probably way beyond what I need to be asking today.
It's a
But
great
thank you.
question. It's a great
Okay.
question.
Right now, that all goes through supply.
All goes through supply, so that's a good point, is
Out.
that there is a little bit of
Okay.
this.
Thank you.
But we are also seeing, to your point about the cells, we are seeing that as we wrap around what is actually the south of the building, so play left there, that while not necessarily cells there is an opportunity where it opens up again in that very southwest corner, upper left-hand corner. There is a potential for an additional cell up in there as well. We just don't have it shown, because we are certainly showing shaping, to capture and swale around the south side of the building there. Yes.
What are we planning for in terms of the service center for I don't know if I'm using the right words here, but how many individuals are we planning for working in the service center right now? And how is that in terms of what our projected growth is?
When we sat down in late December, we went through that exactly, and we ended up with a growth projection, I think it was 10 years out, 10-year plan. And you'll see here in the plan, we actually have a few more spots than just that. So we're looking at about an 80 employees in service center, 80 employees for T&D is, I think, the way that this was ultimately split in. So a total of 160 at this location.
My other question is, and I don't know if this has been cleaned, I don't know if this has been cleared up in the recent past. It's just the last time I went through the building, there were boxes of paperwork everywhere in this building.
They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah. So we went through and did a whole, those were here because there's a record retention policy.
Okay.
And we were allowed to get rid of them after a certain period of time. We just weren't doing that. And so when we had the shredders come in and we got clearance from the state and we got rid of all that we didn't need to keep, we got rid of all of it.
And then do we have currently an off-site records retention location?
Yeah, it's across the street from Goldcasters on Washington Street.
And is the intention that that will continue to be there, or is there a records retention area within the building, or is it by some law that we have to have it in a separate building?
It'll be in the building.
It'll be here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have planned for it in basically a mezzanine area of the maintenance building. So keep it out of because it's not accessed daily, monthly,
Right.
whatever. Keep it out of the prime office space, and let's find a functional space for it. So we do have a mezzanine plan for this facility in the maintenance building.
Excellent. Thank you.
And there is a process in place to do the assessment of what we need to keep every year now. So we won't accumulate all those boxes again.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yep.
it. Okay.
We did have a few inspirational images here that were pulled together, and Cecil, if you wouldn't mind maybe just explaining what some of these are? Sure. Do your name and firm. You've done this before. Name and firm.
Cecil Finland. I'm a partner with Rundell Ernstberger Associates. I'm the landscape architect working with Champlin on the project. So we have a few just inspirational images to give you guys an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about some of the features that you might find on the proposed site design. So this is really just that idea of this is actually a clean pedestrian bridge. This is the transit center in Indianapolis. And what's kind of in the foreground and in the background are these bioretention cells. And so we have these very kind of tasteful, clean pedestrian connections that go across those bioretention cells. Those are always less than 24 inches of grade drop to the bioretention cell adjacent to them. And they actually have a piece of like plate steel that comes up off the side of the bridge that basically creates a curb. And so we do that for a couple of reasons. We do that so that a person who might have a visual disability it can be cane detectable. So if you're swinging your cane, it's going to hit the edge of that plate, but also it's a deterrent for wheelchairs. So, that way a wheelchair can't errantly go off the side of the bridge. But handrails are very expensive, and they also create a lot of visual obstruction in the landscape. So where we can, we're trying to minimize the use of any handrails. And maintenance. And then we also have in the same slide,
Just scroll with it.
there we go. Kid's trying to catch up. There we go. We have some other ideas within the area between the buildings. Because bridges are expensive, we're trying to minimize the use of bridges. But what you're seeing in the lower images there are this idea of using materials that are local to Bloomington. So these would be like large slabs of limestone that we could use to create terraces from the pathways down to those bioretention cells. And what in the image on the lower left that you're seeing is that idea of a bridge, but it's not really a bridge. It's an at-grade boardwalk. But it's, again, introducing a material to show a visual distinction as people travel through the site. And then plant material. The idea here is to create a sustainable campus, and so what we're trying to do is use natives as much as we can. You'll probably recognize a lot of the photos here. A lot of these are of Switchyard Park. But essentially this idea of creating these wetland recharge basins, so like the area in the top left and top row, second from the left, and actually everything up top are all bioretention cells in Switchyard, so is the lower left. But then as you kind of get through the 3 images on the bottom right, those are more kind of upland or prairie style plantings. And what we would try to do is try to be selective in the species that we're selecting. That way we can create something that's going to flower throughout the year and not just have, one bloom time, then everything turns brown and everybody's like, what are those weeds growing out in front of CBU? We're trying to avoid that, that kind of perception. And then right now, we currently have very few walls on the site, and our goal is to maintain very few walls on the site. But we've started thinking about if we do have walls, what could those look like? And that'll be dependent on the context of how the walls are constructed. But, there's opportunities in things called like gabion walls, which are the images on the top left, which are essentially baskets full of stone. They're large, heavy, gravity set walls. The images on the right are just, again, kind of those ideas of large quarry blocks that could be stacked and gravity set. And then when you get to the lower left, those are more refined images of like what you might find at IU, that's 10th and Woodlawn, where you might have a cast-in-place wall that has a split limestone veneer on it. So in cases where we have to make some grade up abruptly, and we really need that concrete to do the work for us, it might be something that lends itself more to a cast-in-place wall with a limestone veneer.
Great. Any other questions on site before we move to the actual buildings? Yes.
Sean, we started to talk about in the overall site plan, where we are with the grades and the creek, and I think we all know that, and especially in our business, 100-year flood rains aren't really the thing we plan for anymore. What we never want to see is this building with 6 inches of water in it because things went bad. We just have to use our imagination. That's happened in Indiana in the last 10 or 20 years. It's washed out highways, all sorts of things. So I never thought the White River could do what it did between Mooresville and Martinsville. But have we taken a good look at where we are here in terms of significant, almost unimaginable flood events?
Andy, do you want to go ahead and address this? I think the short answer to that is yes, we have. But Andy Knust, if you could name and firm.
Andy Knust with Bledsoe Riggert Cooper James, civil engineer for the project, doing the drainage detention utility design for the project. Yes, so there's 2 dashed lines you see on this image here, one of which is the FEMA mapped floodplain, and the other is a more site-specific interpretation of that base flood elevation as it lays on the contours that are out there today. But essentially, we're keeping the buildings, horizontally, they're not very far removed from where the floodplain is, but that's just where Clear Creek is today, and but vertically we're we're pretty high above the floodplain elevation. Like the west side of these buildings are going to be, elevated above the grade such that, like, I can't tell you off the top of my head what that floodplain elevation is through here. It varies a bit across the site, but we've got the floor of the buildings at 682, and the floodplain elevation is down 8 or 10 feet below that. So we're, the floor of these buildings is elevated well above the floodplain. And we're also considering, the catchment areas from the parking lots and everything, that's upgrading of the buildings as you can see from the grading plan. So those parking lots are going to flow downhill, but they'll be intercepted by these bioretention areas, the water quality features that we have in the middle of the parking lot, and all that's going to grade towards the middle of the site here. And if in the event that this fills up, we'll grade a low overflow path that will carry excessive flood waters between the buildings and not through them. And also, we'll have overflow relief going this direction around the south side between the service center and Gordon Pike. So yeah, that's definitely something we're taking into account with the grading plan.
That's good. In my mind, it always makes sense to put maybe the parking lot closest to the creek. That way, you can move cars, but you can't move buildings,
Yes. Well, part of the reason that we have developed the plan the way we have here is that, proximity to the neighbors on the east side of the site, but also like we have some flexibility with how we can slope the parking lot to minimize the amount of cut into this fill slope. So it's a bit of a cut and fill balance also as to why we've placed the buildings on the lower part of the site, and also for views and connection between the service center and the creek. Really, it's kind of an aesthetic feature of the site too. But we feel confident that we can protect these facilities from floods.
I guess I'd feel better in a subsequent meeting, maybe our own folks or whatever, that we've seen maps on different projects that we do for various types of flood events. What's turning green and what's turning blue on the maps. And
Yeah.
it'd be good to see that on this site once you have it graded out with what you plan, where we would see how close we're going to see water in a significant event.
Yeah. Well, I can.
Oh, you have that?
Yeah.
Well, what do you know?
Looking at it here, we haven't got it all color coded, but we've got finished floor elevation here at 682, and down here the flood elevation, just from looking at the contours there. Whoops. Sorry about that. Still getting used to the way this mouse controls, but the flood elevation is down at 673. So we've got about 9 feet vertically between the flood elevation and the finished floor of the building. So yeah, horizontally the flood waters won't be very far removed, but like Gordon Pike would be long underwater before these buildings flood down here at the bridge. Like the bridge on Gordon Pike should be set above the 100-year flood elevation.
100 years not enough. We see that
Yes,
in this town.
yes. So, but that bridge will be underwater before these buildings will.
Okay. Another question about the truck wash. Are we, and that may be part of your plan here in a minute, but my question was about a water treatment plan for the runoff from the truck wash. Do we have a plan for that, tanks or filtering or something?
Well, the drainage from the truck wash will actually go to sanitary sewer. That's.
But do we want to grab, do we want to separate oils and things like that?
Sediment and oil, there would be oil
Yes.
water separators, sediment control.
Okay.
Sediment boxes, oil water separators, absolutely as part of the truck wash.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but the source of water for the truck wash would actually be roof runoff from these canopies and the service.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Anything else on site? Want to give just a brief update on the buildings? Want to be certainly cognizant of your time?
Another
half
20
an hour,
minutes or
20
so.
minutes,
and, yeah,
okay, great.
This is our time to shine here.
I guess
Perfect.
I'll just ask this now too. So you mentioned that we would have like a 3-acre yard. We currently have a roughly 2-acre yard.
That's correct.
So I guess, do we feel like that's big enough and accommodates for the potential growth? Because if we're saying 5 years from now is what we've planned on, well, by the time this gets built, it might be 5 years. And so then are we just putting ourselves for the current and not the future?
I think, sorry, it's my opinion that should be enough for significant growth. There's different ways you can organize it, ways you can store it, so I think personally that it'll be fine.
And we do own the property to the north of it.
correct.
So we could expand if
Correct.
necessary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's strategically adjacent to that space for
Okay.
the fact that we could expand if we needed to the north. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
So on that segue, that's perfect into the kind of the layout of the maintenance building. And keeping in mind that, north is to the right here, just like the site plan. So the yard is to the north, the truck wash is to the right. The truck wash is just a little bit up above, in that upper right-hand corner, just off the page. But the overall organization of this, of the facility is really into 3 major components. You have your indoor truck, the indoor truck parking, in basically garage area, which is the big open space. The lower portion, which is going to be your supply, your warehousing, and then also a meter shop and your maintenance bays. And then there's to the left-hand side, to the left-hand side of the floor plan is the T&D area. So you have your office area, you have your ready room, and you have your locker rooms. And I'll zoom in on each here in a second. But I guess the fourth one is in the very lower left-hand corner of the plan is that lab alternate that was identified as being an option to pull that into this site. And so we do have right around 2,700 or so, 3,000 square feet for the lab. With the garage, some of the things that we've talked about, and again, it's probably this most straightforward, but it has been a significant topic of conversation, as we know that that you all have made a significant investment in a number of vehicles, and a lot of those cannot and should not be outdoors when it is freezing due to having water. Some of them are very sizable. Your two vac trucks are shown here in plan, being parallel parked on the upper hand portion of the plane. The idea that we can, and we went through this in pretty good detail with the spreadsheet that was provided to us, went through truck by truck by truck and started to identify what can and should be in, what can and should be outside, and ultimately came up with having these 12 bays, if you will, for indoor parking for the larger vehicles, and setting them up in a fashion that they can come in, and rather than currently right now they just kind of stack and parallel park, and if one wants to get out they have to move the others, and it's very sequential. The idea that they can pull in, diagonal park, and pull out, so we are eliminating in all of the vehicles in here a need to back, which is a safety concern with that sense. So the idea that we're pulling in and pulling through and pulling out is how this is set up. So we have very sizable aisles. These are 28-foot wide aisles. Again, recognizing these trucks need good turning radiuses, they stack to the left and then turn into the bay, and then as they go, they can pull all the way out to the right-hand side of the aisle. So it's one way in and one way out. Enter with the two. Currently, we have it set up so you enter from the east, from the north, which is to the right, and exit to the left. We've talked about flipping that because ideally it would be nice to take the trucks through the car wash before they come in, or through the truck wash before they come in here. So reverse that flow and send them out the opposite direction. It's really, It can go either way. On this, we're still evaluating the final flow. I think we're moving more towards the idea that send them through the wash first rather than have to put them in the wash, turn around, and then come around. But we do have a few other, small features in here. We do have, it's your green infrastructure storage. We do have some, we have some treatment storage where you have a few chemicals that you want to, store and stuff in this area for quick access. Trucks can easily pull up and grab those and go. The idea that we also have a little bit of vending, a little bit of ice, ice for folks to put in their lunch buckets and go on their way. But the idea that this is also set up on that south side, it would be the east side, plan south, a really nice concourse that can indeed facilitate fork truck access for using, for moving large pieces of material back and forth down to maintenance shop, meter shop, or even to trucks that are pulling up to to load items for the day. The storage, the warehousing area, and the supply area is featured by a truck dock that comes in, from the yard. So trucks back down into this onto a dock that is connected to kind of a shipping receiving area. And whether or not we have a true separated vestibule, I think is still up for conversation. But very compact in the sense that movement from truck to the warehousing is very simple, very easy. And we have set this up for very nice wide 12-foot wide aisles, 42-inch deep, 48-inch long, or 84-inch long shelving, so that these heavier items can indeed be easily moved around by fork truck, as opposed to right now they have to be depalletized and moved around by pallet jacks into smaller rooms. So really turning this into more of a true warehousing type operation. And you can see the two overhead doors that then provide easy access out into the vehicle bays as well. So material storage, flowing through this, from this out to trucks, very simple, straightforward. We also have a smaller material supply room that is immediately off the supply office area, and that area is seen as smaller part storage that would indeed need to be broken down anyway. So we have those just being stored there, with a supply office for 3 staff, a little bit of conferencing area, a small kitchenette up front as well. We have indeed pulled communications out of the service building. I think they're located right back here right now, and we've put them in the maintenance building because the maintenance building is behind a secure environment. So the idea that they could take their cars in the evening, drive or even in the day, drive into the yard, be fully secure even at evening, not on display, not up front, in the service building itself. So we've tucked them up front, right up front. Incidentally, the service or the supply area has a great view out to the yard. They have a great view to the loading dock, and if we put a little bit of windows in here, they actually have a little bit of a view into the warehouse. So something that is, again, very centrally located in terms of operational flow. We have also taken a look at the meter shop and operations and had the conversations there. And so we are providing a couple of offices. There's discussion about adding a few other touchdown stations in there as your staff does indeed, grow and come from other facilities for, touchdowns, quick touchdowns. But we do have small part storage. We have, significant amount of test station area. We're talking even going upwards of testing up to 4-inch meters, is adding that as a feature for this test area. But the other big thing was meter shop having direct access to, to large warehouse type storage. So we've created that opportunity right there as well. Maintenance shop currently is located up high, and I think that one of the things that we've done here is pulled them into the interior of the space. They still have great access to trucks. We do see a central overhead garage door that a truck can indeed pull and back up into this space if needed, or we could potentially extend the rail out and pick from there, but probably just pull, back in here but have a rail that unloads these very large pumps that can bring them right into the workspace, set them right down on the, on the workstations where they're going to be working, and really minimize the need for handling of the equipment like they do now. A couple of really large, work tables, smaller part storage area. There's probably still a little bit of space left to work in a couple of touchdown stations as well. But maintenance shop was from some of their, the list of their conversations or the conversations we had with them, those were some key features that we worked in. Moving into the T&D area, we do have, very large, or I shouldn't say very large, we do have an office space for them. There's about 16, I think, 16 touchdown stations or workstations, excuse me. The assistant director's office, another office, and huddle space, conference room for the T&D staff that's immediately located adjacent to the ready room, where the balance of T&D staff can collect, before and after, the workday, et cetera. We do have locker rooms for, men's and women's locker rooms. We also have kind of pre-function rooms that include boot wash and laundry, et cetera. So folks who are coming in from the field after digging and are dirty and wet, they have a place to basically, strip down, clean off before entering into the actual locker room area. So really giving them a place to clean up before they go clean up is what those two spaces are about. And then, of course, the ready room is set up. It's multifunctional. It's set up as, it does have a, kind of a kitchenette area as well, but it's also set up that it can, service a number of functions. Depending on the furniture layout, there's additional storage there. And so you can have, presentations, you can have, debriefs, debriefings before and after the day. All in this area, and it does connect to the south side, to the west side of the yard, where there is additional T&D parking in that sense. But the main entrance here that you saw on the site, this is where the connectivity, where it is coming in, go out this direction at about 100 feet or so. You could walk straight across to the service center, so they're not terribly segregated from a distance standpoint. That is pretty much, well, the overview of the floor plan for the maintenance building. Are there any questions? Again, I want to be cognizant of your time. Yeah.
So where is this is the building where you said that the file storage was going to be?
Yes, great question.
I'm not seeing it on here, but
Yeah.
our storage room.
Yep, we still need to work in a stair right here. And then this entire area, about 4,400 square feet, is going to be mezzanine.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry.
Can you do it one more time? I can't, I was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we need to work in stair access somewhere right in here.
Oh, I see, okay.
But this area, all the way up and over and around, is going to be, it's about 4,400 square feet of mezzanine. So the entire south end of that garage is going to be mezzanine.
And then I noticed that the women's locker room is substantially smaller than the men's, and I understand that the population is definitely higher towards men. Do we have is this enough for the current women that are on staff and projected?
Yeah, it's double the size that we currently have.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm hoping that we can double our workforce of that way, So, yeah, it should be plenty.
Thank you.
Could you please scroll up? I'm sure you said it and I just missed it, or I just don't see it here. But where is how is this part of the building connected to the rest? Because I only see this exterior door.
So the lab is not
Okay.
directly connected. It's the relationship between lab and environmental is seen as was seen as the as a kind of a predicate there, and so it's kind of connected across the way. So it is self-sustaining in this sense. They have a small kitchenette. They have their own bathroom, and it is kind of self-sustaining in that sense. We do currently have this set a little bit higher in elevation. because of the way the topography works, and whether or not there is a direct need to have connection into, into the facility, it could probably be worked out. It hasn't been identified as a need to have the lab connected to the warehouse. We do have sample drop-off immediately in the site plan, immediately, outside this front door, if you will. So have some reserved spots, so those folks from the public or your own staff coming to do the pool samples, things of that nature, immediately pull up right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't work here, I don't do this,
Yeah.
so I'm sure you guys did this, this way for a reason, but to me, I would think like if it's part of the building, there should be an access somehow to get into the rest of the building, even if it was because you work in the main service center and you walk over and, gotta go see somebody in this apartment, and then I gotta go all the way back and around and out in this other door. I just hate that it wouldn't be all connected somehow, even for like, I don't know, a storm emergency or something, and our safest place is to take cover in this area, or whatever, I don't know. I just from having a classroom where I wish, gee, I could have had a little window here to see the person on the other side of me, like, I think that, I don't know.
Want to make sure that we leave some time. I do want to hit a little bit of the architecture on this. We're running out of time with you. But we are seeing this as a durable and judicious use of materials, so we're proposing kind of a precast panelized component for the majority of the building. We are indeed looking to get some, some translucent panels in very strategic locations around the building so that we're taking advantage of natural light, really enhancing sustainability. And then, so this view kind of gives a vision of what it could potentially look like, and whether or not we end up with that amount of translucent panel, or it's a combination of metal panel, is I think still evolving. But the idea that, again, we're using durable and on the lesser expensive side of materials for your maintenance building is a key. We are certainly taking a look at the architecture of the canopies, whether it's cast in place concrete, but the idea that we are detaining on capturing water at that point as well. Want to make sure we leave some time for the for discussion of the plan of the building. And yes, go ahead.
Before we move on to this,
Yeah.
is there any consideration for a gender-neutral locker room area?
Gender neutral, I don't know that we've talked about it, but
For locker room
we could
area.
potentially peel out a portion of the men's locker if that's
I think
that's the
thinking
future.
towards the future,
Yeah,
that
sure.
is probably a good idea.
Sure, okay. Great.
We do have some gender-neutral bathrooms, Sean.
We do. In the building, there are certainly gender-neutral bathrooms in the maintenance building as well, up further to the north. And then we have several gender-neutral in the service center as well. It's not the locker room. That is correct. But the point, and so maybe it becomes a gender-neutral bathroom that is a combination shower, dress, in that sense. I think we can look at something like that. The overall, just for quick time, I'm going to go ahead and hit this.
Absolutely.
And jump in. The overall orientation of the service building, again, it really takes a look at how folks enter the facility. So in the lower left-hand corner is what would be primarily public entrance, but it also can certainly be staff. They don't have to go through the north end of the building. But we really set this up as kind of a public and secure zone on this, and really tried to celebrate the differences between the two. So you'll notice that the training room, the board room, and even conference rooms, we've talked about from an engineering standpoint how many meetings take place with folks from the public coming in, reviewing plans and projects and stuff like that. So we're not forcing public folks back into the private area. So we've got that area completely segregated. We've got a main aisle corridor up front that can be used as kind of a pre-function space. So on nights where you have board meetings, folks can gather out front, or if you are having other types of meetings in the facility, they can step out and take a phone call at a chair that is situated along there. But as you come in, you're immediately greeted by a receptionist. We've talked about a potential to have someone circulating from each department to cover that during portions of the day, or whether or not there'd be full-time staff there. But a nice vestibule, a nice vestibule where you've got kiosks and everything that the public can still come in and do their online transactions right here at the facility. We do have a small deal window immediately inside that goes into customer service. So if a customer does need service, they can step up to a deal plate. And then if they need a little bit more personal attention, they can be invited into a small conference room, again, right off of the secure corridor, and not have to enter deeper into the public space. That main lobby is seen on, we're going to celebrate brand and also take a look at something to do with, that may be a little nod to the history of the city of Bloomington utilities in that main area. But then at that point, right, there is connection back to the office in that sense, and we have organized these based on department. But one of the biggest things that we've done as the design has evolved is create this secondary connectivity so that all of the departments are also connected behind the scenes. So the customer service is not disconnected, from finance. So moving, kind of clockwise, the yellow is customer service. The green and the teal blue areas are basically your purchasing and finance. And then the tan areas is going to be environmental, and the purple is the engineering department. And so we've organized all of these along a central spine that will have opportunities for collaborative gatherings. Again, some TVs, branding, it's things along that primary wall, but something that really allows for the majority of the staff to flow in and out fairly easily. We're also wanting to celebrate the views, and you'll notice that the open office areas are organized in such a fashion that they are in front of windows that look out to the exterior. We've also set a vocabulary up that we have paired a small conference room and an AD office in every single area. So, starting off down in customer service, there's an AD office and a small conference room. Moving around, again, in the finance area, in that upper left-hand corner, and then each of these next two pods for environmental and engineering. And that really is also set up such that we are really, from a sustainable standpoint, everything about this building is also considering how sun and solar are integrated into this. So these angles aren't just because we're architects and we want to do something cool and fun. They are also very purposeful in the sense that they are mitigating the amount of solar gain on this building, which indeed lowers the initial cost of equipment and long-term operating costs. One of the larger features, in this space is kind of the celebration of the cafe in that upper right-hand corner. It is integrated. You saw on the site plan that there is a nice outdoor terrace. Is that we are indeed seeing this as being a place not just to eat, but a place to have some spontaneous one-on-one meetings or take phone calls and stuff like that. And we do have it segregated with doors, because of smell and sound. And even on nice days, if there's an opportunity to open up some doors, that warmer environment doesn't trickle into the balance of the facility. But we do have public facilities off of the front. In terms of restrooms, we have unisex immediately, or so gender neutral immediately behind it that could be set up for staff. Maybe one's gender neutral, maybe one's dedicated female. In that sense, we don't know. We can still consider, but we do have throughout here four additional staff dedicated toilets in addition to the central toilets that are up front in that sense. So overall, we're meeting our counts, just doing it slightly differently. We have indeed, in the central area there, in basically just immediately adjacent to the purple area, which is engineering. We have a central, print plot file area. We've talked about how we may look at some dedicated, storage for other departments in that space. But IT and IT workroom, considering that this place also does some of your central service on the balance of your technology. And we do also have, next to those back to gender-neutral restrooms, we do have an additional, or we do have a wellness room in that area as well. So overall flow, in this thing is, in this facility is seen as, along this central spine, but we are certainly encouraging the circulation along the perimeter as well. So we're not disconnecting, disjointing the departments. The other part of that is that as you grow, as you flex, one of the questions that you all had for us in the interview is, how do you deal with, is growth and flex? Some departments may be growing faster, some may retract. And so the way that we're setting this up is so it's not so segmented that you can't, adjust. We look at these as neighborhoods, and how they might flow and come together is certainly flexible in that sense. But we have taken into account the number of the number of requested offices, the number of requested workstations, and the areas that are post-shade, a little bit darker, are areas that are pre-planned growth. And so and then the areas that you see that in the workstations that don't have any color or post-shade to them are actual additional growth outside of that pre-planned growth. So we are certainly keeping that in mind. And there are certainly opportunities to densify this a little bit more. There's some space in the circulation aisle, so if it does, but we just kept it at this level at this point. I want to make sure that we do hit on the architecture of the building. Again, the idea that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just two
Yes.
quick comments, really, and don't need a answer to it. I feel that, personally, I feel the director's office is very disjointed from where the staff is.
Okay.
I don't know if that's intentional, especially with us having a new director coming on board hopefully within the next year.
Yeah.
I understand probably it's there because it's central to going both ways,
Yeah.
but I feel very isolating.
Feels out of it, okay.
Yes. And then and again, I'll lean on staff on this. This open area for where you have chairs and things for the entryway, we've been told that we're not entertaining, I say entertaining, we've been told that the service centers, since it's by appointment only, we don't have the need for that kind of space. And that to me seems a little bit wasteful right now, but that's, yeah.
Well, we might need that.
We might, but
Maybe for that purpose.
I don't know, I get some staff input here, but it may not be configured correctly in this building. But we've all talked about how we feel, I think. I've heard that, I've certainly said that we're a public utility that serves the citizens, and we winced a bit when we had to get to a situation where you walk up to the building and see frosted windows and it's closed. And so we may need to rethink that for this one.
I mean, even bringing Carter again to that point, having kiosks in an entryway for customers to leave things, we don't see that at banks. We don't see that at the DMV. You go up to a kiosk that's in an open area where they can see other people. So I know it has been brought up that security is an issue. Well, banks aren't, banks have angry customers, as do probably most people who work at City Hall and Indiana University.
We can design that in.
Yeah.
And from that passive active security standpoint, that's one of the reasons why we have this front of house, back of house very well defined. And then also that the reception desk area is immediately adjacent to the entrance into customer service. So if there is an issue, they can depart or, out the back door. So we have talked about, the other thing we've talked about, Kat, I'm going to stretch my memory here, but there have been conversations about, partnership with, some classes, at IU, and celebrating and having them potentially come over and have their collaborative here and have those classes meet outside class times and use some of these facilities as well. I think that was a conversation we had. I may be misremembering.
We do work with some classes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so using like maybe these training facilities or some of these areas where we have capacity to have a large amount of people, so, you know, that could be useful. I also think Holly had input about that as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I think you're right. I think we should, you know, we can certainly look at this, but when we look at an opportunity to combine, and the way that we have this set up is that the boardroom, which is in the middle, can indeed, there's an operable wall in between that and the training, it can't open up, that this can indeed be used for 120 plus individuals. To have a little bit of pre-function space, I think, as we were planning it in the conversation we were having, just to make sure that you had that option and it didn't feel too pinched on day one, in that sense.
I would agree. I think that, but that's a conversation that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
And I also thought the customer service area with the 6 desks, I thought we have 6 current staff members in customer service already.
Yeah, but we're going to be implementing some processes that are going to automate some payments. We've already put, we have a new phone line that you call in to make your credit card payments, so we don't have to do those on our own. We're looking to get some check scanning equipment, and so I think we can mitigate any growth with efficiencies, was my thought.
Okay. But that doesn't, like, if we're already filled at all those desks, then.
What I'm saying is they'll be able to, they'll have more time because we're doing less transactions. More things are going to be automatic and automated.
So taking away people jobs for automation?
No, just that having the processes be automated will free up time for them to do other things.
Okay.
The
Well-
intent is to not eliminate any positions.
Okay. I think that's probably, we need to discuss that
Great.
in depth more.
Great.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time.
Yeah, I just wanted to close to keep us on time and say how thankful I was to the board's engagement during this process. Again, Phil Peden with the engineering department. I didn't say that, but you guys had a lot of great comments, and we're trying to take that feedback. And this process has continued to evolve. When they first brought the plan in, the parking lot was on the left side of the building, and you know the maintenance things were flopped in different directions. So it's really cool to see how it starts and how it evolves and how quickly Sean and Brandy and their team can work and make those changes. Really quite amazing to be part of the process. So I think we've got a great team. I really want to thank Sean and Brandy for staying around today after a long meeting. The rest of your team, Cecil and Andy, the input and the value you brought to show the board was very helpful. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for your input and your counsel with the whole staff to working with the architects. You know, I brought up my point about parking lot next to the creek. Heck, I was on the building committee. We built a downtown fire station. And you know what? You know what? We started digging a hole and water's coming out of the stone.
Yeah.
And I call the engineers. You know what they said? We'll put a pump in. They did. And then the next rain, it flooded again. I called the engineers, so what do we do now? They said, we'll put a bigger pump in. Third time, we put 2 pumps in. Now we're filling in the basement and remodeling the building. And I still feel bad about that time, my time on the city council, because I didn't put my foot down when water was coming out of the side of the stone. So anyway, that's where that came from.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, we need to adjourn our Utility Services Board meeting, but first ask, or the Property and Planning Subcommittee, but first ask if there's any petitions and communications from the public for this subcommittee. All right, if not, we will stand adjourned for the subcommittee and move over to the full board meeting.